Welcome back to The Great Detour. Today's guest is someone who honestly impresses me so much. Jack Wagoner is the host of the Grateful podcast, which already has over 100 episodes, and he's only 18 years old. I don't know what you were doing at 18, but I can tell you I definitely wasn't talking about purpose or personal growth. I was way too preoccupied trying to check all the boxes on my life plan, not to mention dating the wrong guy. Lessons learned there. But what's so wild about Jack is that it's not just what he's achieved, but who he is. Grounded, intentional, and genuinely curious about life in a way that feels light years ahead of his age. He's doing the kind of inner work that most of us don't even think about until much later in life, usually after a detour or two, and he does it with such humility and perspective. Some of the things we talk about in this episode include pushing your comfort zone, redefining what success means, and how gratitude and ambition can actually go hand in hand. And Jack leaves us with so many thoughtful insights. I cannot wait for you to listen in. And if you're enjoying the show, it would mean so much to me if you hit subscribe, leave a rating or review, or share The Great Detour with someone who'd love these conversations too. And with that, here's my conversation with Jack. Welcome to The Great Detour. I'm Jess, your host. In this podcast, we talk about life's unplanned paths, those experiences that challenge and transform us in ways we never expected. Through honest conversations, my guests and I share inspiring stories and practical advice to help you navigate your own journey. I hope these stories inspire you to trust your path, embrace change with resilience, and step into your most authentic, empowered self. Jack Wagoner, welcome to The Great Detour.
Thank you, Jess. It's so funny how the Grateful podcast and Great Detour start with the great. So yeah, I'm super excited for today.
It was meant to be. I'm so excited for this conversation. So Jack is the host of an incredible podcast called The Grateful Podcast, as he just mentioned. And it's a show where he and his guests look at the intersection of success, ambition, and gratitude, which is a really interesting way to look at gratitude. And you just hit over 100 episodes, right?
Yes, I did.
Congratulations. That's a huge milestone.
Thank you. Yeah, 100. It's amazing. It's so cool to say I've done over 100 episodes.
An incredible achievement. You should be so proud. And I had the pleasure of being a guest on one of those episodes. And Jack and I had such a great conversation, and we talked about all the things. So I knew when I launched season 3, I had to have him on the show because you guys would love the conversation just as much as I did. And one of the things that I find most intriguing about you, Jack, is the fact that you are 18 years old, like still technically a teenager, hosting a podcast, over 100 episodes. And honestly, talking to you, you would never know because you have the depth and perspective of somebody who's twice your age. So I'm just continually impressed by you, the work that you put out, the things that you're doing. It's just absolutely incredible.
Thank you so much, Jess. Yeah, it means a lot. And I think the thing I get the most often, I was just talking to someone about this, is old soul. That's probably the most common thing I hear. And yeah, I just love talking to older people, learning as much as I can about the world. And I think that's really what it comes down to, curiosity.
I think I did call you an old soul when I was on your episode because, yeah, that is exactly the term that comes to mind. I'm like, he's done this before. He knows things. Like, I'm trying to think about the way I was when I was 18 years old and the things I was talking about or worried about. And it's just, I was in a very different mindset than you are. So it's actually a breath of fresh air to see young people being so introspective and looking inward. And I just think you're an inspiration to a lot of younger people, but also the rest of us who are doing the work as well. So I'm really excited to get into this conversation. But given the fact that you are 18 years old, you are also a student in college right now and you're studying abroad.
Yes, I am.
Where are you?
I'm in London currently. It's my second time studying abroad. I lived in France for my junior year of high school. And so now I'm doing my freshman year of college here in London, which is amazing.
How is that going?
It's going really well. Yeah, I miss nature. I have to say that's the one thing that's been coming to my mind more than not. But I'm going to camp in Sweden this weekend, so that'll be a great getaway.
Oh my God.
But just exploring the world and meeting new people is like one of my favorite things to do. So going into a place, meeting people from all over the world, it really teaches you about life in ways that nothing else can. And that's the coolest thing. It's why I really crave these experiences.
Yeah, they say that travel is the only thing you can buy that makes you richer, and I really, really believe that to be true. I love travel, and I did a pretty extensive amount of travel like later in my life, but one of my regrets, and I do not have many regrets in life. I look at a lot of my quote unquote failures and detours as experiences that I've grown from and learned from. But one thing I do regret is not studying abroad because
Hmm.
when I was your age, I was with my now ex-husband, but my boyfriend at the time, and the idea of going abroad and being that far away from him and the potential of us possibly breaking up, I just couldn't wrap my mind around it. So instead of
Hmm.
going and choosing myself and experiencing the world, I stayed put. I stayed in my comfort zone. And I look back and I'm like, oh man, if I could speak to that version of myself, I would be like, girl, pack your bags, go see the world, go trust that things are going to work out the way that they're meant to. So I love that you're doing that for yourself now.
Yeah, I think something I've always thought is just do as much as you can that's different than what other people are doing if you want to live a unique life. Like, I always think to myself, I want to be exceptional. And in order to be exceptional, you have to be the exception. You have to do things that are different. And you have to follow that intuition, even if it feels like it's off some path. So that is really what I try to do in my life. It's like, even if I feel like I have some connection to home that is really hard to break and it's really uncomfortable to leave, I know that once I get here, I'm just going to immerse myself in the experience and learn so much. And it'll teach me things that, again, like you can't learn anywhere else. And it's that type of experience and that type of learning that's so invaluable and so worth it. And I couldn't trade for anything.
Yeah. And I think it's that learning, like that on the job, on the ground learning, like those are the lessons that really change your life. Are there any particular lessons from removing yourself from your comfort zone that come to mind that have really like changed your perspective on life or impacted you the most?
So recently, I've been thinking a lot about my comfort zone in general because I
Mm.
have pushed my limit very far of what is comfortable. And doing so has allowed me to really expand my perspective on life and dive into things I 2 years ago, 3 years ago, had no idea existed, like podcasting or studying abroad in college like this. But one lesson that comes to mind that has really been at the forefront of my consciousness recently is your comfort zone always does need to get pushed. So even if you've expanded your comfort zone to a point where it's extremely out of most people your age's comfort zone, or most people you surround yourself with, most of your peers, that doesn't mean that you can get complacent and not push your comfort zone further. And that's something that I really have had to think a lot about recently because I'm at a point where, to most people, what I'm doing looks very uncomfortable. It looks very out of the norm. But to be honest, I've gotten used to a lot of it. So it's how can I continue to push the boundaries of who I am and continue to expand into an even more amazing version of myself?
I love that. And I think the more that you push yourself outside of your comfort zone, allow yourself to experience that discomfort, it enhances your capacity to handle it. So then the next thing comes along and you have this just greater capacity. And then the next thing. So it is important to just challenge yourself in those ways. I'm curious for you, do you ever feel lonely or like just isolated in your mindset and mentality? Because it is different from a lot of young people your age.
That's a really good question. And again, something I do think about a lot. But I've went through different chapters with it where I've kind of grown away from friends and then reconnected with them because I realized we don't have to have the same interests all the time. Just it's not the same connection as when I was younger. And then here in college, it's been different because I live in a building where it's all 18, 19-year-olds and they have very different priorities than me. But we also have overlapping priorities. Like, I'm not the type of kid that says I'm going to lock myself in my room and work hard all day. And I'm a very, very hard worker, but I really do prioritize social interaction and friendships. It can be a hard thing to balance, but my podcast has definitely helped me fulfill the part of me that's looking for meaningful connections with people that are more wise, if that makes sense. Because wisdom's not something you find. I'm surrounded by people much, much smarter than me all of the time, but they're not wiser than me. And I think it's that wisdom, that lack of wisdom in my peers that sometimes does create some type of loneliness. But that loneliness is really, I guess, it's fed with my relationship with myself. And that's what it's pushed me to do. I feed it with meditation, journaling, rock climbing, and my podcast. And so I never truly am lonely, but I have a lack of wisdom around me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's a really nice way to frame it. Because I experience the same thing. I think when you're a person who's into personal development and personal growth, not everybody's on that train. And so
Mm,
it can be lonely. It can feel like you're the only one with this mindset that you have, and nobody else really gets you or understands you. But I love what you were saying about friendships. Like you have friends from childhood, and maybe the dynamic has changed, but you still have those people in your life. And that's something that I've learned over the years as well, where I have different levels of friendship. You have like your VIP section with your ride or dies and the people that you'll call at 3 a.m. if an emergency
hmm
happens. And then you have just your friends like to go out with on a Saturday night when you need something to do. And podcasting is the same for me. I'm one of those people that needs depth in their connection and needs, yeah, the same thing with wisdom and deep connections. And I found that in podcasting, you get to have these really great conversations with these really intelligent, brilliant thinkers and people who are looking at themselves and the world in new ways. And so that's been a gift to me. So it's interesting to hear you say the same thing because I've found in my own journey, it can be isolating and lonely because I will often feel like nobody gets it. And I'm like, is there something
mm.
wrong with me that my mind works this way? And I always want to be better and I always want to like change and grow. And so it's interesting to hear your perspective on that.
I think realizing that it's okay to be different is one of the hardest
Mm,
but most simple realizations that completely changes your life. Like,
yeah.
we don't have to be like everyone around us, and that's all right. And we can be okay being different. And once we're okay being different and we can accept who we are and that that person that truly fulfills us to be is different, it allows us to work in synchronicity with other types of people without feeling more pulled to be like them or more pulled to be like someone else if we're trying to be more like them. We can just work in parallels, but be okay being on a different side of things.
It's really an exercise in authenticity, is what you're talking about. And I'm just, again, my mind is blown, Jack, because this was something it took me way later in life to discover, and a lot of detours and hardship and pain to really look at myself and go inward. But for you, being 18 years old, already on this path to authenticity, were you always wired this way? Or is there something like, are your parents therapists? Like, where did you get this mentality from? I'm curious.
My parents are absolutely amazing. Like, I am so, so, so lucky to have been raised in the environment I was raised in. I just met with one of my mom's friends here in London today, actually, because she's here for a conference. And she just kept telling me how amazing my mom is and how she's the most amazing person she's ever met. She's the wisest, kindest person. And I think that is where I get a lot of it from. I mean, I've done a lot of work myself, and I've had certain challenges that I've gotten through to get me to the perspective that I have today, definitely. I'm going to take some credit, but I want to give the majority of the credit to my parents. My dad was a school counselor for kids who had some behavior issues, and so he's dealt with so much and has really helped people get through things as well. So both of my parents are incredibly skilled at just helping people get through things. And that's been amazing in my life.
What a beautiful thing to say. And it's just wonderful to have role models like that in your life that you can look to and say, hey, like I want to model myself after that and continue to grow into the version of myself that I want to be. So I absolutely, absolutely love that. So you're 18, that makes you part of Gen Z, correct?
Yes.
Gen Z. So I'm going to just be honest. I feel like you guys get a bad rap. Oftentimes, especially when I was working in corporate, it's like, oh, another Gen Zer. They don't want to work. They're lazy. But I would be so bold to say that I think it's quite the opposite. And I think you guys are one of the most conscious generations to date. And you're really
Mm,
doing the work, looking inward and rejecting these traditional ideas of success and what it means to be successful and really carving out your own paths. So for you, I'm wondering, what does success look like? Because I know what it looked like for my generation, and we were all kind of doing the same thing. But I'm wondering what it looks like for you and what you're striving for. Like, what are your ambitions?
I think to me, I break success down into three different categories. So when I first started thinking about success as a younger kid, I mean, I started thinking about success early, and it was all about achievement. How much can I achieve? I wanted to be the greatest baseball player of all time. I wanted to be the first astronaut to go on Mars. All of these massive ambitions, but what was fueled behind them was this idea of achievement and greatness. And as I started to get older and started to reflect a little more, I changed that perspective a little bit. And success started to become more about a feeling. When I look forward into the future, what do I want my life to look like on the inside? And it was peace and it was happiness, whatever that means to you. I think happiness gets a bad rep, but whatever happiness is to you, or joy. And then now, this is actually very recently, I've started to realize that, well, if you're doing everything to optimize for an internal feeling, then you're leaving out this entire beautiful world around you and the impact that you could possibly have. And so I do believe that this third pillar of success is impacting other people and bringing them that joy and that peace. But none of these work alone, because in order to have that impact, you have to have that inner feeling yourself. And in order to be able to really distribute it to other people, you have to have achieved something. And so I'm really at this point where success is this melange of these three different things of achieving, of this feeling, and of impacting people. And for me, my ambitions and my goals come down to all three of those things because I think they're very subjective for each person. I know that I want to feel just incredibly joyful beyond my comprehension now. I mean, I feel blessed to be very, very joyful now. And that's one of the cool things about the inner feeling. You can achieve it right now if you really dive deep enough. It's not stuck behind the walls of some accomplishment. But I want to accomplish more so that I can impact more people. And that comes with my podcast. That comes with this rock climbing clothing brand I'm a part of. That comes with my studies in neuroscience. I want to be able to explain the mysteries and such cool things that happen inside our brain to other people to help them. And all of that, I think, at some point, it's still coming together now. At some point, it'll all come together into a very beautiful and clear picture of how I can impact people while achieving joy and achievement.
What an answer. I'm trying to think of how I would have answered that question at your age, and I feel like it would have been a profession.
Yeah.
This is what I'm going to do with my life. I want to be a doctor or whatever the answer might be. But that was such a really nuanced and beautiful reflection on what success means. And I love that you put impact at the end. I really do think that we're meant to help each other and be in service to each other. And that also feeds that feeling component that you were talking about. When we're in service to other people, when we're making an impact, not only does it help others, it gives us joy too. That's one of my go-tos when I'm in a difficult season or in a detour in my life. I always remember, what am I doing to be in service to others? Because that will ground you, that will bring you back to yourself, get you outside of yourself, your own head, and focus your energy outwards. And beautiful things come from that. It also generates gratitude too, which I want to get into in a bit. But that's such a great perspective because, you know, I think at least my generation and myself, we always had this linear look at life where you go to college, you get the job, you get married, you have kids. And that's always how I viewed success. Like I'm supposed to check these boxes, and yours isn't checking boxes. It's about these areas. And then you're open to those like expanding and changing over time too. So I absolutely love that response.
Yeah. And we're talking to me right now at 18, where this answer would have been completely different 2 years ago. And 2 years from now, it might completely change if you ask me as well. So I think allowing your definitions of things to be very fluid and dynamic is important in cultivating success.
It's so true because there's so many versions of you that you haven't met yet. You are going to continue to grow and evolve. There's so many people that you're going to meet. Those relationships will impact you and change you. So I think it is critical to be open to wherever life takes you into evolving, and the way you feel now could change. And that's okay because we don't want to be stagnant. We don't want to be in the same place forever. So that's an important thing to note as well. Do you ever feel the pressure to have it all figured out right now?
Hmm. Yes and no. I think that there's pressure from the outside all the time on people my age, people younger than me even, to know exactly what their life is going to look like in 10 years from now. And that is crazy. The fact that you want someone at my age to know what them almost at 30 is going to be doing, you're limiting a 30-year-old's life to an 18-year-old's perspective. And that's crazy. I think you should have kind of a general idea of where you want to go with your life. And then you can take a ball and you can chuck it as far as you want in that direction. You land there, you look around, and you can be like, all right, let's go in that direction now. That looks like the better direction to go in. And you chuck the ball and you do it again. You're not setting yourself on this linear path, which is more like a tunnel where you have no doors that you could possibly see. Like, there can be so many doors that open in the next 10 years for me. So there's definitely a pressure from, I guess, my parents don't put a pressure on me, but from other kids that feel that pressure. They put it on others, if that makes sense. And then professors or grandparents. My grandparents are amazing too, but I'm lucky to not have as many of those external pressures. But internally, I think that I have a pressure on myself to succeed and achieve. We just talked about that, and that's been a belief that is not rooted on me from my parents or anyone. It's rooted from myself and my want to be great, whatever that means. So I don't feel like I need to have my life 10 years from now figured out now, but I always feel like I need to have the now figured out pretty well. I need to know how today is going to impact that idea of joyful impact on people. I need to know how I'm moving the needle. That pressure is pretty strong at times, and it's almost unescapable, but it's also a good thing because it's helping me really live my purpose.
I really like that. And I love the idea of just having the right now figured out and having just the immediate next step. I live that way in my life now, and it took me a really long time to get there. I used to be the one that had to have the 5-year plan, the 10-year plan, and you lock yourself in. And like you were saying before, you kind of limit yourself from all these options. Like, you don't know what you don't know right now. So you might discover something 6 months, a year from now and say, oh my gosh, I'm really interested in that. I want to pivot. I want to go in that direction. Like, I never knew podcasting would be a thing. Who knew I would end up here? So I think it's taking the immediate next step, doing what's right for you right now, and being open to those possibilities is such a great mentality to have. And, you remind me a lot of myself with achieving and your ambition. My ambition came from like a place of, I think, unworthiness. It seems like yours came from a different place. It's just wanting to grow and be better.
See, that's a question that I'm constantly asking myself because as I talk on my podcast to people that are extremely ambitious, a lot of them say that their drive did come from a place of unworthiness and wanting to prove something. And when I analyze my past, I have no real history of that. Or at least the people that I'd want to prove things to came after I had big dreams. I had a moment when I was 12 years old. It was the first time that I wasn't going with my family to see my grandparents for 4th of July in Pennsylvania because I was staying home to play in the state tournament for the All-Star team in baseball. And that entire week that I stayed home, I was staying with my friend and I didn't play a single inning. And it was sad for me. And this one coach came over, and it's a bad week because my friend that I'm staying with is playing over me the entire time, and he's amazing. I have no grudge against him, but this coach said every team needs that little bitch to sit the bench and not complain.
Oh, wow.
And those words will never go away in my head. So when I'm proving things to people, it's people like that. really it's proving things to myself. And I don't know why I feel the need to prove things to myself. It's just something that's there. It's one of those things that seems innate.
Yeah, I wonder if it's just your all the potential you have within you. You know, they say sometimes when you see somebody and maybe it elicits envy in you or just like you feel some sort of way, and they say it's because you already have that in you, that untapped
Mm.
potential. And there's part of you that knows you're capable and it's stirring up those feelings inside of you. And I wonder if for you, maybe it's just knowing all the potential you have inside of you and it's just like just waiting to come out and you're just like waiting to tap into it. And so you yeah, you push yourself and challenge yourself to get there. Along those lines of achieving, I wanted to talk about the concept of failure because I know in your
Mm.
podcast you do talk about failure a lot, but you frame it in a different way as a positive thing, that it's actually good to fail. So can you talk to me a little bit about your experiences with failure and what they've taught you?
Yeah, I invite as much failure as possible into my life because if you're not failing, you're not pushing yourself far enough to learn. And honestly, one of the things that I optimize the most for my life is growth. I want to grow as much as possible. And if I don't fail, I don't grow. So I'll tell a little story about my senior year of high school where I got back from France and I knew that I wanted to take AP Calculus BC, which is one of the hardest classes you can take. But when I was in France, I didn't take pre-calculus. It was a very weird equivalent. So I realized I'm going to have to take this final that I never learned. I never learned this class. So I spend a day or two trying to learn this in the summertime. And I realized there's no way I can learn all of this in 2 days. So I go into the school in the summer to take this test, and I just end up talking my way through to the professor, just kind of being me.
That's a great skill to have in life, by the way. Keep that
Yes.
skill. It is a great skill. It'll serve you well.
She ended up being the best teacher I ever had, but I got into the class and I'm so set up to fail. I know nothing. Everyone in the class took pre-calculus with this teacher the year before, and I ended up getting an A in the class, getting a 5 on the exam, testing out of calculus 1 and 2 for college. But I set myself up to fail, and there were so many micro moments where I did fail in that class. And even when I went to France, I failed some classes because I had no idea. I didn't know the language. And so the way I learned was through failure, was through getting through the fear of talking to people when I had no idea what I was saying. And by failing, I learned. And you learn the most through your failure. If you're always succeeding, if you're scared of failure, then you're never actually going to get over that hump. You're going to stay stagnant. Although you have the impression to yourself of being successful, you'll never be more successful than you are now. And I don't care how objectively successful I am. I want to be more successful in all the ways that we defined success earlier. So it's about finding the ways that I can fail fast, fail often, and fail forward. Learn from it. I mean, don't try to fail and learn nothing from it because you want to succeed. I don't want to frame it like I don't want to succeed in life. I want to fail so I can succeed more.
How did you get over, or did you even have a fear of failure? Because I feel like many of us, like that sounds in theory like, okay, I'm going to not be afraid to fail. But then you get to the moment and fear does come up, especially for you or people like us on podcasts, like to fail in a public way. That's like, there's some real fear there. Okay, I'm going to put myself out there and I'm going to try this. And like a lot of people might see this and I might fall flat on my face. How did you get past that?
It's repetition. I mean, there's nothing besides doing it that's going to make it less scary. And the first time that you're going to fail, don't try to fail in some massive way. If you want to get over your fear of failure, then you can just start small. Like say, I'm going to go talk to this stranger on the metro that's reading a cool book. I mean, that's one of the first ways I started getting over my fear of failure. A fear of no, a fear of rejection. It's all the same feeling. So if I see someone doing something cool, I'm not going to listen to my brain like they don't want to talk to you. They're just doing their own thing. Maybe that's true, but I want to talk to them. So I'll go over and I'll say, hey, what are you reading? It looks really cool. And if you do that enough times, then you can start to, maybe you have a business idea and you're like, oh, I want to pitch it to some people to see what they think. So then you can go up to people whose opinion you care about and you can say, hey, I have this idea. What do you think of it? Whereas a month ago, you were afraid to talk to even strangers that had no consequences. Now you're saying something that has real value, and you can do that. And then once you do that and you get that confidence, you're like, oh, I've done that. Now maybe I can post a video on social media. Okay, because I know that these people thought it was good, and I might fail, but I already have some type of validation. And having some type of validation that really brings up your internal validation, it's really this paradox, right? Because the more external validation you have, the less internal validation you need. But you need more internal validation in order to go reach for that external validation.
It's true. It's a fine balance. And speaking of going up to random people, can you tell us about how you met Simon Squibb on the street and what you did?
Oh
I
my
saw that
God.
line and I was like, this kid is impressive.
That was incredible. Yeah, I was walking home from a lab, a 3-hour lab that went late because the TAs had some problems with the lab protocol, and I was honestly a little pissed off, like letting some external things get to me. And I'm like, oh, I'm just so hungry, so I stopped to get food even though I didn't want to pay for anything. And I'm coming home and I'm on my street, literally right out that window. And I see a guy recording. I'm like, that's Simon Squibb. That'd be so funny.
And for those who don't know who he is, can you explain who he is? He's like a big
Yes.
entrepreneur, right?
So Simon Squibb, he has 20 million total followers across platforms, and he started out by going up to random people with a mic and saying, "Do you have a dream, or what's your dream?" And then he helps them achieve that dream. And yeah, he's an entrepreneur. I forget how he made his money in the first place.
He was homeless initially, and then now he's this big entrepreneur, I heard. Like, crazy
Yeah,
story. Yeah.
he's amazing. And so I go up, and then he's interviewing someone, like not a random street interview, but it's like a purposeful interview. And I go, Simon Squibb. And I go up, I shake his hand, and I was actually feeling very nervous, even though I don't get nervous much anymore. Like I jumped out of a plane a month ago. I climbed 700-foot cliffs. I don't get physically nervous, but this made me nervous. Simon, I'm Jack Wagoner. I host a top 2.5% podcast, over 100 episodes. I'm a student here. I'd love to have you on my show. And he still hasn't gotten back to me, but we had a 10-minute conversation. I got the information of his team, they got my information, and it was amazing. It was just like, this world is so cool, what it brings you when you invite it into your life.
And you weren't afraid to make the move, and now you planted a seed. And who knows what will happen to that down the road, but it takes a lot of bravery just to say, all right, I'm going to go introduce myself. I'm going to take this risk. I might fail. He might think I'm crazy, but I love that you did that. I was laughing so much when I saw you post that on social. I was like, oh my gosh, how brave. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, and it's just this thing where, I don't know if you've read Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. It's an amazing book, but one of the big premises of it, and basically the book is defining the outliers, defining the most successful. So one of the biggest case studies is Bill Gates. And he talks about how the formula to be like this great, outwardly successful person is working super hard and getting lucky. But they go hand in hand, because when you're always working hard, if that moment of luck strikes, you'll take full advantage of it. But if you get lucky, but you're not a hard worker, you might have gotten lucky and you didn't even know it. So I think if I have a fear in my life, it's that I get lucky and I don't take advantage of it. And so that's one of the main drivers behind everything in my life. It's like, oh, wow, this moment could happen at any time, because there are so many inexplicable moments in life. It's like, how did that just happen? That is beautiful. Or life reminds you that it is amazing and it wants you to succeed. One of my favorite books is The Alchemist, and it talks about how beginner's luck is there to help you realize that you can succeed. It helps you get started on the journey with that momentum so that you're able to you have the confidence to face those blocks in the road, those detours, you might say.
Yeah, I think those instances of luck, those synchronicities, they happen all the time. You just have to open your eyes and realize like the universe is always working in your favor. It really is. And if you are ready and you are prepared and you are open, you will be amazed at the opportunities that fall into your lap. That's kind of how I approach my life now. I used to be, I mean, I still struggle with worry and anxiety from time to time, but I always used to be in this chronic worry mindset and catastrophic thinking and what if things go wrong. And right now I'm like, I'm living very intentionally, very consciously. I know what I want. I know the feeling I'm going after. and I'm open and I'm putting in the work. So I know that things are just gonna work out for me. And that's how I kind of have been approaching life lately. And let me tell you, it's a nice way to live. A lot lighter than the way I was living for years before. But it's true, those things just happen. And I think being open to them is super important. And also being grateful for them. And that can transition us into the topic of gratitude, which is what your whole podcast is about. And I wanted to ask you what gratitude means to you and why is it such an important topic that you created a podcast about it?
Yeah, I think gratitude can often be conflated with complacency, where people think in this era of, I mean, it's not really an era, it's kind of a culture of achievement. And that's the only one dimensional aspect of success that people see. They think if you're grateful for what you have right now, then you're saying, I don't want more, and you're limiting yourself to your current self. And I say, no, no, because you can have gratitude with ambition. And being grateful is really just appreciating all that we have in our lives right now and how amazing it is that we're here. No matter what you have something to be grateful for. And I'm realizing that I can say that from a place of much more privilege than a lot of people. But I truly do believe that if you wake up, you're able to be grateful for just opening your eyes and breathing and seeing the sun. And so my really big thing with this podcast is understanding that so many people that are very ambitious are the least happy or the least joyful because they've created a delta between their current reality and the reality that they want to have. And that delta, that gap, is their unhappiness. It's their struggle. It's their striving. So I thought to myself, is there a way that you can be grateful for what you have? Say, this is enough. This is amazing. While still inviting more abundance and more into your life. And that's the whole idea, what I call the duality of gratitude and ambition. And that's really how I think about gratitude. And I also, to add another caveat to that, think that gratitude is often a very physical thing. Saying, I'm grateful for the roof over my head. I'm grateful for the food I eat. Where the more powerful form of gratitude, once you can get there, is being grateful for the things on the inside. Saying, I'm grateful for my determination to get through today. I'm grateful for the person I was and decided to be in that scenario. And that type of gratitude is even more powerful because it reinforces who you are.
That's really powerful. And what you were just saying, immediately what came to mind is the concept of manifestation. It actually sounds like that. You were saying to be grateful for where you are and that I have everything I need, I have enough, but still be open to abundance. That's really everything that's behind manifestation. It's like embodying that frequency. Like I am enough. I am going to be in this frequency of abundance, of love. And from that place, you end up calling in more of it. So I think that's a really interesting way to frame it. And I really, really like that. I'm curious for you, have you been through any detours or just any failures in life that you are really grateful for and that have impacted you in a positive way? Because I think, you know, a lot of times being grateful for the hard things is important. And it's hard to do, to look back on a divorce or a failure or a job loss and think, man, I'm really grateful for that. But a lot of times those things change us for the better.
Yeah. So it's hard to think about exact things that have happened. But I have a few examples. So when I was 3.5, when my parents got divorced, and to most people, that is a devastating thing to happen to them, right? You look at the stats of most kids whose parents get divorced at that age, and it's not great. But my parents, as I've already said a few times, are incredible. And I remember it very clearly. I have a very vivid memory from even before my sister was born. She was born just after I turned 3, which is crazy. And what I realized is in that moment, I didn't fully understand everything that was happening. But that was the first catalyst in my life that taught me that even if things aren't the way that they're supposed to look, they can be even more amazing. Because now my parents are both remarried to amazing people. Instead of 2 amazing parents, I have 4 amazing parents. And later in my life, as I failed, I always keep that in mind. And I think I've failed in many different aspects, especially recently. Like I gave myself the goal of hitting 100,000 downloads to my podcast before I got to college. And I hit 11,000, 11% of that. I didn't even come close to the growth that I wanted. And what it allows me to do when I do fail like that, when I hit a detour, is say, okay, well, maybe now's not the time. I really, really would have liked for that to work, but I trust that there's a reason that it didn't, and I need to learn from it. And there's things I could have done because I believe that that was entirely possible. There are things that I could have done to make that happen, and so I can learn those and make it happen in the future. But yeah, I'd say I've had some other moments around school and sports, but nothing huge where I'm like, this is the moment that changed my life.
And that's okay. Sometimes it's a million little moments that change your life. But what a beautiful way to look at the things that quote unquote failed or didn't go according to plan. Divorce. My parents divorced when I was young too. But look, having you say, look, I have two bonus parents that are amazing. I think that's absolutely beautiful. And then also, your goal of hitting 100,000 downloads, so brave, so ambitious, and yet you treated yourself with such grace when it didn't go according to plan. I think that's a lesson in and of itself is how do you speak to yourself when things go wrong? How do you love yourself when you're not performing as expected? That's been a big lesson in my life is not talking down to myself and not being so critical and hard on myself because you're not going to perform well when you're beating yourself up. That's no way to live. So you extended such grace to yourself. And it's almost like I've done a lot of self work and we talk about reparenting yourself and talking to your inner child. It's almost like you're being a parent to yourself and saying, okay, you did the best you could. Keep going, learn from that. It's just a wonderful perspective to have.
I mean, we're always going to be with ourselves, no matter where we go. It's something I've learned many, many times. The first time I got to France, I left and I'm like, all right, this is new time. I get to leave things behind. And this is always still here, right? So it's fostering a relationship with yourself that is kind, but also pushes you. And that's where everything starts, your relationship with yourself. And I think, honestly, if we want to talk about where I got my head start, it's there. It's just realizing early that the most important thing I can do is love myself and learn to love myself and push myself at the same time.
It's the most important relationship you'll ever have, the one you have with yourself. Coming into this world with yourself and you're leaving it with yourself, and you will be in your head every day in between those two times. So it's just important to have a constant conversation with yourself that is supportive, loving, pushes you, but is one that you actually want to have. It's not one you're trying to run away from and that's too hard on yourself. So, Jack, this has been such an incredible conversation. I want to close with one question for you. You're such an intentional person. What is something that you are excited about either creating, exploring, or experiencing in the year ahead?
In the next year, wow. Well, I think one of the things that I'm most excited for is just meeting all the new guests I'm going to have on my podcast and seeing where those relationships will take me. Because just with you, it took a simple DM, and now I do feel a very genuine connection, and I'm so grateful that we have this, and it's the same with so many people. So people really do bring me more joy than anything in life. So continuing to meet amazing people that inspire me and that lift me up, and I hope that I can lift them up as well. I'd say that's the thing that brings me the most joy on a daily basis, and still the thing that I'm looking forward to the most in the near future.
You and I are very similar with that. People are everything, and it's great having those connections and fostering those connections. So I can't wait to tune in and see the new guests that you have. You always have such a great guest, so I am super excited. So for those who are listening, where can they go to find out more about you and about your podcast?
So they can go to Jack Wagoner on Instagram or on YouTube, where I have the Grateful Podcast that you can find anywhere where you get your podcast. So Spotify, Apple, where else do people get podcasts? iTunes, literally anywhere. The Grateful Podcast with Jack Wagoner should be there.
Awesome. Definitely go check them out, guys. Jack, thank you again. This was such a great conversation as expected. I knew there would be so much depth. And you just remind us that, finding authenticity, carving your own path, it can start at any age. It doesn't require a massive detour or a ton of pain, just some self-awareness, curiosity, and intentionality to build a life that is true and authentic to you. So thank you again, and I wish you nothing but the best. I know you are going places. I cannot wait to see all the amazing things that you do.
Thank you, Jess. I'm so grateful for you and this conversation.
Thanks for listening to The Great Detour. If you're enjoying the show, I'd love if you could leave a rating or review wherever you listen to podcasts. It really does help the show have a greater impact. Also, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Have your own detour story? You can share it with me by visiting thegreatdetour.com or The Great Detour on Instagram. Thanks for taking this journey with me.